The Livella, Part 3. Omnia's Secret. The story so far, a dryad has deposited a newborn baby boy into the hands of his human brothers because dryads only keep their female-born. Hidden at a distance, a sinister old man who calls himself Roosevere the Underlord witnesses this exchange. Using blood magic, he establishes a telepathic link with his daughter Mallie, a high-ranking priestess in Itland's capital city. Together, they discuss the potency of the baby's fairy blood and begin to scheme about how to abduct the infant in order to use it. Because of the natural strength and martial prowess of the baby's guardians, who are half human and half fairy folk, this is no easy task. To this end, Mallie, who is in fact a Hierophant, enters the Moraz, a mysterious labyrinth from a forgotten age, known to hold forbidden knowledge, situated deep underneath the ecclesiastical citadel of the Itlan. Inside the Moraz, a place in which time is completely static, Mallie encounters Omnia, a priestess lost in the labyrinth. We now pick up the story once again as Omnia bids Mallie lead her safely out of the Moraz.
"I thank the void that you found me, merchants," Priestess Omnia said again with heartfelt piety. She produced a frilly little lace handkerchief and dabbed at her eyes, still sniffling. "Oh, I had entirely given up all hope of ever finding my way out."
"You were most foolish to brave the Moraz in the first place, daughter," Mallie murmured, shaking her head. Then her voice hardened. "However, your foolishness should not be without consequence. Your passage out of here comes at a price." Omnia flinched and eyed Mallie fearfully, almost warily, twisting her clenched fists into the thick folds of her skirts uncomfortably. But then she cast her eyes around her once again at the gloomy corridor with the glowing words in their never-ending dance. She immediately bowed her head in acquiescence.
"Anything! Name it, merchant! Just get me out of here!"
The Hierophant suppressed a triumphant smirk that threatened to break out across her lined face. A devious plan was starting to take form in her mind, and this beautiful, innocent girl was perfect for it. Could the Moraz really have delivered her such an ideal solution? She marveled. "Upon your return to the world, you will go on a pilgrimage, sanctified daughter," she told the young priestess. A look of relief broke out across the girl's transparent face.
"A pilgrimage? Oh, I see. Of course, merchant. It shall be as you command. May I ask what sort of pilgrimage?"
"One of my choosing. You will hear more of it soon enough, but before I lead you back out, I need to know exactly what it is you were seeking that made you embark on this foolishness in the first place. Only Hierophants really have any legitimate business here, you know. Were you not taught that the Moraz is a labyrinth that many have entered who never return?" Omnia lowered her eyes once again. "Yes, merchants," she agreed contritely.
"But were we not also taught that the Moraz holds the answers to impossible questions?"
Mallie regarded Omnia in the gloom of the narrow corridor, illuminated only by the glowing words on each wall that rhythmically blazed into existence and then faded into the blackness again, only to be replaced by yet more words. As always, Mallie resisted the urge to read them. "You followed the words on the corridor, didn't you?" she asked the beautiful young priestess with a knowing smile.
"Of course, merchants. They promised to guide me to the part of the Moraz where I would find the answers to my questions."
Mallie squinted upwards so that she would not accidentally look at the words tantalizing her. She could almost see out of the corner of her vision what they were asking her, and her imagination was threatening to fill in the rest. She grimaced. Questions coming from the unaligned mind, heart, and soul. They led you astray. The words of the Moraz can guide you, it is true, but only if you are pure of intent.
The ancients apparently did not design this place with artifice in mind.
Omnia curtsied again.
I thank you for this precious lesson, merchants, yet I do not fully understand. My intent was surely pure.
Mallie folded her arms underneath her chest and raised an eyebrow, genuinely amused.
Was it indeed? Then you should not have been lost and would not require my aid to get yourself out of here, daughter.
Omnia's pretty, dimpled cheeks flushed red, and her lower lip began to tremble slightly.
Did you find the answers you were seeking? The Hierophant pressed her. Yes, merchants, Omnia admitted, though a bittersweet revelation it was. I was led to the very heart of the Moras and the poor, sad Livella who dwells there.
The Hierophant frowned at that, genuinely puzzled.
A Livella? Surely you mean a scorpion? No, merchants, I encountered no scorpion, but a Livella. And oh, what a heartbreaking sight it was.
Omnia's voice cracked slightly, and fresh tears sprang in her eyes.
You must have been mistaken or tricked, daughter, Mallie said sharply. No Livella would come anywhere near such an environment, even if one could somehow survive it. By the void, I swear it, merchants. 'Tis true I have never beheld one of their kind before, but what else could it have been? 'Twas slender and no taller than a teething babe, with double wings like silken gemstone thread and an exquisite maiden's face.
Mallie studied the younger woman skeptically with a deeply furrowed brow.
And what did this Livella say to you exactly? She shed a tear for my lost love, and she finally eased my pain by explaining what had become of him.
Mallie's eyes glinted in the dim light of the corridor. Aha, she said in satisfaction. Your lost love. He was a root man, was he not?
Omnia gasped at that, unable to conceal her astonishment. How did you know that, merchants?
The Hierophant ignored that question.
So you came down here and braved the Moras to find out what had happened to this root man of yours.
The young priestess's face crumpled.
He had been gone more than a year. I tried. I had to know. It was killing me. He had only gone to visit his brothers at the old depository, where he had been raised on the Isle of Mouskin, and deliver some new, high-grade, resonant crystals for their array. A journey of mere days by sea, as you will know, merchants. But he never came back, and he never contacted me.
She started sobbing again pitifully.
Stop that, Mallie snapped sternly. Then she made a self-conscious face and, with an effort, softened her voice.
Tell me what you learned here in the Moras, daughter. Omnia took a moment to regain her composure, then continued.
The words on the walls, they gave me lists of choices for the sort of information I was seeking. If I pressed on a certain word in the list, the walls seemed to understand and gave me directions. Move down the corridor. Second turn to the right. In such manner, the questions became more and more specific, and the directions given in response to the answers led me to a chamber that was filled with silken curtains and some manner of nest or cocoon in its center. The chamber, it had the most delicious aroma of freshly baked pastries. And hovering above that nest or cocoon-like structure, her wings merely a blur to my eye, but her skin glowing like 1,000 fireflies, the young priestess concluded intensely. I saw the Livella.
Mallie shook her head in disbelief.
Impossible, she breathed. Of course, I had never seen such a creature in real life before, Omnia conceded. But I recognized her form and likeness from the polyastries chamber of tapestries, with which I have no doubt you are also familiar, merchants. Well, this Livella, as I said, was surrounded by comforts, but she was blindfolded and exuded a great sadness which I could feel like a fist around my heart. It quite overwhelmed me. Guard your feelings, daughter, Mallie murmured. The Moraz can be a place of trickery and illusion for the uninitiated. Yes, Mergence, I can but regale what happened to me. So the Livella turned towards me, though her eyes were covered by a blindfold, and she let out the longest, deepest sigh I have ever heard. Then she said, "You are welcome, child. Your coming, gift-bearer, stands at the cusp of ages, and so my work here begins." The Hierophant frowned deeply. Cusp of ages. Her lips formed the words again silently. She leaned forward and gazed at the young woman with a renewed intensity, her eyes narrowing a little. It was starting to seem that the Priestess Omnia's coming to the Moraz may have been more than just mere foolishness on her part, after all. But Mallie decided to keep this suspicion to herself for the time being. She wanted the young priestess to believe she owed Mallie a debt, or at least a favor, after all. At first I was too shy and overwhelmed to speak to the creature, Omnia continued. For she trembled slightly, her tiny shoulders were slumped in what looked like great weariness or dejection, and her glittering wings would stop beating intermittently, causing her to start to fall, until she beat them furiously again to keep her airborne. But she prompted me to unburden myself of my question, and, into the long silence that followed, she flew straight upwards into the darkness of the chamber. A moment later, she descended again, and gave me my answer. The young priestess's voice faltered. It has been some hours, maybe even days, since I heard what happened to my love, but it is all I could think about as I wandered lost in these accursed corridors. It seems that the crystals he was carrying to the homestead of his brethren were somehow tainted. Their corrupted frequency had the effect of tainting his aura when he ventured into the woods of the Dryads. Though they were his kin, and he had been granted safe passage many times before, they mistook him for a man of evil intent, and they shot him full of arrows. She blurted the last before the tears came once again. Mallie, who had been listening intently to every word, inhaled deeply and sensually as she recognized the information she had been seeking here in the Moraz. After a brief moment's reflection, she could see clearly what she had to do. In a considerable effort to keep under control any sign of her great sense of exultation, she released her breath again in a slow, measured sigh. "I grieve for you, daughter," she said quietly. "Now come, follow me." Mallie turned on her heel and began walking back the way she came. "I should warn you, sanctified daughter," she said over her shoulder. "It has been somewhat more than a few hours or days that has passed in the world above since you came here seeking answers for your tragedy. The Moraz is no respecter of time, at least not in the way we perceive such things. It is said that the ancients cast such a theurgy on the Moraz so that the works contained herein would not crumble into dust." "Oh, I had no idea of such a consequence," Omnia admitted. "Have I been missing for long then?" A thought occurred to her as they turned a corner and took a right fork in the long corridor. "Have my friends given me up for dead?" "It's worse than that," Mallie replied bluntly. "Your friends are probably long dead themselves, unless any of them among the sisterhood attained sufficient rank to gain access to the secrets of longevity. And if such is the case, they will not be as you knew them." The young priestess stopped in her tracks in the middle of the corridor. Words appeared on the walls either side of her, taunting her with offers to answer the many questions rushing through her mind. "What?" she exclaimed. "How long have I been lost, Mergence?" The Hierophant came to a halt herself and turned around quickly to face the young priestess. "Well, I can only guess," she admitted, "but judging by the style of your raiment, your mode of speech, and your initial ignorance of my status, I would guess at something approaching 250 years. Omnia whimpered. I am sorry, daughter. Now, I have no desire to significantly add to that tally, so I strongly urge you to put aside your shock and fright and keep on moving, Mallie hissed. Numb and mute with shock, Priestess Omnia followed the Hierophant out of the bewildering labyrinth of the morass, back up into the familiar halls of the polyastry and the unfamiliar new life that awaited her.
End of part 3 of the Livella. Part 4 will be out next Friday, the 19th of September. How will Priestess Omnia adjust, so far displaced in time from her old life? What does Hierophant Mallie have in store for her and for our forest friends at the depository? Stay tuned to find out. Hi to all my listeners. A big thank you for tuning into this latest instalment of the Livella. Don't forget, if you do feel inclined to tip me for my work, you can do so via the link in the description. Cheers.